wouldn't be wrong if you felt like Aphex Twin's latest album, Syro, literally dropped from the sky, because Aphex Twin really kind of announced that he was back with a big-ass blimp right over London. And I'm going to be operating this review as if you're not a fan of Aphex Twin, or if you haven't listened to Aphex Twin before. So just keep that in mind. Aphex Twin's last album came out 13 years ago, so it was kind of a big deal whenever he announced that he was back. This is a guy, Richard James, who is behind Aphex Twin, has literally been on like the cutting edge of electronica and really just, I would say, avant-garde music since the mid-90s, and even earlier than that actually. And one thing that's great about Aphex Twin, and I think one of the reasons why people are so excited that he's back, is that his music doesn't really age. Like, if you go back and listen to some of his early stuff, it still holds up today. It still sounds great today. Whereas if you look at something like Nine Inch Nails or Prodigy, it does not sound, it sounds very dated. The production doesn't really hold up. But Richard James is generally known for his analog instrumentation. Even though he does operate with electronica, a lot of his sounds are very natural, or very, more or less just kind of made with actual instruments instead of automated systems. But he's a guy who's known for constantly pushing himself in new directions and finding new things. So the new album, Syro, is great. I'm not even going to try to hide it until the end. I think this album is wonderful. And if you hear the first song that was released for this as a lead single, Mini Pops, you'll get an idea of what this album really sounds like. That song is a little over 4.5 minutes, but it never really repeats itself at any given time. There are another 8 bars in Mini Pops that really go on to repeat themselves, or cycle back or loop around, and that's actually true for probably the whole album. I don't think that there's a moment on this album that really repeats itself. As soon as Richard James creates his idea, he moves on to the next thing, pushes that idea forward to see where it can go, see what can happen to it, to play around with it. And so if you listen to that track, you'll realize that it's probably not for everybody, but if it is up your alley, it's really up your alley, and it will really scratch an itch that you can't really get with many other people outside of maybe a Tim Hecker or even a One-O-Trix Point Never. But I think that where this album goes from good to absolutely fantastic is with the 6th track, Circulant 6A. I don't know. If you look at the track listing, you'll see that it's all kind of gibberish. Anyway, this track really finds Aphex Twin playing with stuttering beats. And so throughout this song, you have him stuttering beats and trying to really hit a groove that you can move to, that you can dance to, that you can, synchronize with, while also deconstructing it while it's going on. And so each time the beats stutter a little bit more and more and more, until it almost feels like he can't do it anymore because the song is going to fall completely apart. But he makes it work, and it's a fascinating track. Definitely one of the best songs I've heard all year. So Syro is like an hour's worth of music. It never really repeats itself, so it can be a little bit overwhelming. But as much as that sounds like it would be absolutely overwhelming, somehow Aphex Twin is able to push things forward on this album and one-up himself on this album while keeping things centralized. So it never really feels like he goes into left field. It never really feels like he's making a transition that he hasn't earned already. The only real misstep that I would say with this album is probably the 2nd track, Xmas Eve T10. It's a song that is over 10 minutes long. I don't not like it because it's over 10 minutes long. I just felt like having it so early in the album, and also having it's one of the lower energy tracks, it really felt like it kind of took away from the momentum that was started with Mini Pops. With that being said, even though I think this is a misstep within the grand scheme of this album, still a pretty good song. Syro is enjoyable and it's exciting, but it's also cerebral and it's interesting. Just like My Bloody Valentine's comeback from last year, this album really finds Aphex Twin not missing a single beat from his absence, and if anything, is a little bit more reinvigorated and a little bit more restless than he ever has been before. Syro is an excellent album, probably an 8.5 out of 10, easily one of the best of the year contenders. If you haven't listened to Aphex Twin before, Syro is a perfectly great place to start listening. If you are a fan of Aphex Twin, then I don't know why you haven't listened to this thing already. You can listen to it on Spotify right now. So I hope you found this review helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up or subscribe to this channel. Check me out on earbuddy.net where we do a lot of written reviews. But more importantly, I want to hear what you guys thought about this album. Did I love it a little bit too much? Do you like it just as much as I do? Do you not like it? Do you think this was a step in the wrong direction for Richard James and Aphex Twin? Let us know then. And until then, I will see you later.